The moment felt final, heavy, and irreversible. The vet's voice tore through the cold air like a verdict, loud and desperate, declaring that it was over, that the body lying on the metal table had crossed a line no one could pull back from. The room froze. The officer standing nearby felt his chest tighten, as if the words had struck him physically. Time slowed, lights seemed harsher, and every breath in that small emergency clinic carried the weight of loss. This was supposed to be routine. It was never meant to end like this. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and moments that remind us why humanity still matters, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more real, heart-touching stories like this. Only minutes earlier, the officer had burst through the clinic doors, boots slipping slightly on the wet floor, arms trembling as he carried the unconscious K9 partner who had been with him through years of night patrols, narrow escapes, and silent understandings that never needed words. The dog's fur was matted with rain and blood, rising and falling in shallow, uncertain breaths. Outside, sirens faded into the distance, but inside, everything narrowed to that one fragile body and the sound of machines struggling to find a pulse worth trusting. The officer's face was stiff, jaw clenched not from fear, but from refusal to accept that this was where their story ended. The vet had worked cases like this for decades. He had seen animals pulled back from the edge and others slip away despite every effort. His hands moved quickly, professionally, but his eyes told a story his voice did not. Pupils unresponsive, heartbeat irregular, fading, trauma too severe, the signs stacked up mercilessly. When he finally straightened, exhaustion and certainty settled into his posture. In his experience, hope could be cruel when it had no foundation. He believed stopping now was an act of mercy, but the officer did not step back. He stood there, silent, his hands still hovering as if letting go would make everything real. This dog was not just trained muscle and instinct. He was the partner who had found a missing child in the woods, who had stood between the officer and a blade in a dark alley, who had rested his head against the patrol car window during quiet dawn drives. The bond they shared had been forged in fear, trust, and survival. And in that bond, the officer felt something the machines did not register. A faint rhythm. A memory of a technique learned long ago, mentioned briefly in a training seminar most people forgot because they never thought they would need it. As the vet prepared to step away, the officer moved. It wasn't dramatic or loud. It was deliberate. He lowered himself beside the table, placed his hands carefully, and began a controlled sequence of compressions and breathing methods adapted from a rare K9 emergency protocol used only when standard resuscitation failed. It was a technique born from battlefield medicine and search on rescue disasters, something used when hope had already been declared dead. The vet watched, torn between stopping him and witnessing something he had never actually seen attempted in a clinical setting. Seconds stretched painfully. The room was silent except for the officer's steady movements and his quiet focus, eyes locked on his partner's chest as if willing it to rise. The vet's instincts screamed that this was futile, that prolonging the moment would only deepen the hurt. Yet something made him stay. Perhaps it was the officer's refusal to panic. Perhaps it was the respect earned by someone who had carried more loss than most and was still standing. Then it happened. Not a miracle burst, not a dramatic gasp. Just a subtle shift. A faint, irregular beat flickered on the monitor. The vet leaned in, disbelief washing over his trained composure. He checked again, hands shaking despite himself. The heartbeat was weak, but it was there. Against all logic, against every statistic, life was pushing back. The clinic erupted into controlled chaos. Fluids were adjusted, oxygen increased, warming blankets applied. The officer stepped back now, finally allowing his legs to tremble as adrenaline drained away. He didn't smile, he didn't cry, he simply stood there, breathing in sync with the shallow rise and fall of his partner's chest, afraid that even relief might break the spell. Hours passed in a blur of quiet monitoring and whispered reassessments. The vet, now fully invested, refused to leave the room. He replayed the moment in his mind, questioning everything he thought he knew. Medicine was science, yes, but it was also humility. The acceptance that life sometimes followed rules no textbook could fully explain. As dawn crept through the windows, pale and gentle, the dog's condition stabilized just enough to allow cautious hope. Recovery was not easy. Days turned into weeks. There were setbacks, long nights, and moments when the officer sat alone beside the kennel, wondering if bringing his partner back had been selfish, but every small sign mattered. A twitch of the ear, eyes opening, confused but present, a tail moving just once, as if remembering something important. The vet visited often, no longer as a detached professional, but as someone personally invested in the outcome. He admitted quietly that he had been ready to give up, that he was glad someone else had not. The story spread quietly at first, among officers, among clinic staff, then further, not because it was unbelievable, but because it was deeply human. It reminded people that sometimes the line between life and death was not a wall, but a door that could still be pushed if someone cared enough to try. The officer never called himself a hero. He said he simply did what anyone would do for a partner who had never given up on him. Before we reach the end, take a moment and comment below with a single word that describes how this story makes you feel. Your words matter more than you know. Months later, the dog walked again, slowly, carefully. The first time he recognized the officer fully, there was no dramatic leap or bark. Just a steady gaze and a quiet strength returning to his posture. It was enough. The vet watched from a distance, hands in his pockets, eyes misted with a mix of pride and humility. He had learned something that day that no certification had ever taught him, that sometimes when all signs say stop, the most important thing is to listen to the ones who refuse. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that compassion and courage still exist in this world, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to support stories that celebrate humanity at its best. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive. The vet would later say that he still believed in science, but now he also believed in something else, in the power of connection, in the quiet bravery of refusing to let go, and in the truth that sometimes the most unexpected move can change everything.